When a car becomes a legend, it doesn't just take you from place to place, it takes you back in time. Today, turbos are whining in these pavement-burning, fuel-injected masterpieces of muscle. These are the most unlikely muscle cars ever created. They're fast, they're mean, they almost never lose, and they're Buicks.
There was a serious lapse of performance cars in the mid to late 80s, and this car came out and started to win races and reignited the muscle car fever in America.
What made these Buick Grand Nationals so grand? That's what these two teams are going to find out. They have 2 days for an extreme muscle car makeover. Take 2 turbocharged Grand Nationals and turn them into high-performance monsters. They'll soup them up, fuel inject them, and then go heads-up drag racing to see which team takes home both cars.
I couldn't believe that we were actually given the chance to work on one of these cars.
This is something exciting for me.
Got a great car, we got a great team.
We're gonna make it happen, you know.
Every step of the way, Full Throttle's world record-holding race mechanics, twin brothers Mark and Eric Kozlu, are going to make sure these teams work to create 2 of the nastiest race cars to ever hit the track.
What we do here is we give people a chance to live in our world for a couple of days, to take the intensity that we feel on a regular basis and go racing.
They'll battle it out and push it to the limit, going full throttle.
The Grand National is the first real turbocharged monster car. It put turbocharging on the map. This thing terrorized quarter-mile drag strips. It was mean in '85, and it's still mean today. It's stealth, and I love it.
These identical 85s now await 2 teams who will have their chance to transform them and go heads up in a winner-take-all drag race.
Cars are in my blood. I've been working on cars since I can remember.
I love working on trucks, they're so basic.
You could say I have a couple cars in my collection. 69 Stingray, 59 Bird, a couple Chevy Loves. Yeah, there's 43 cars in my garage, but there's always room for one more.
I'm a Los Angeles County firefighter paramedic.
And I'm a firefighter with the Los Angeles County Fire Department. Sundance and I, we work on all of our own equipment at the fire station. We work on all the trucks. My experience with the fire department has given me a lot of comfort working with big machines. You know, once we make a repair, it has to stick, it has to work, and it has to work right now. We drive them hard, we drive them fast.
I'm here to get both cars.
All right, fellas, well, welcome to the shop. We got an exciting 2 days planned for you guys here. Basically, give you a quick overrun of the rules of the game here. We're going to give you guys 2 days to work on these vehicles here, and basically, at the accumulation of the 2 days here, we're going to take these cars to a racetrack, and we're going to run them heads up, best of 3. Whatever team wins gets to keep both vehicles. But we only got 2 days to work on this, and the time frame is real tight, so we got a lot of work to do, so we got to plan strategically. And if you go overtime, for every 10 minutes you go overtime on day 2, you're buying yourself a 1/10 of a second handicap when we go drag racing for the first race. So we got to work smart, we got to work fast. All right. I got a coin toss here. Anyone want to call it?
Heads.
Tails. Pick which car you want.
I'd have to say the left one. What do you say, Jeff?
Left. Oh, that's your car. All right, that's your car.
Left one.
We'll take it. See what we got, baby.
All right. You guys know what we're looking at here? You guys know what you're looking at here, right?
Oh, yes.
It's one of my favorite classic modern muscle cars here. This is an '85 Buick Regal Grand National. You see the turbo dumps right into the intake manifold?
Right.
So, you know, that's going to limit how much boost we could run and how much power we can make, so we're going to change all of that.
Okay.
Cars have no transmissions in them.
No
transmissions? Part of the deal here is going to be putting the new converter in and changing the transmission out. So that's obviously a mandatory thing that needs to happen. These cars do not have transmissions and converters in them right now. Okay. We got a lot of work to do.
We got a lot of work to do, yeah. I'm glad to be working on it.
I remember seeing these things screaming down the street as a kid, going, man, I wish I could drive one of those.
You know, I was just saying the same thing. I mean, constantly, man. I always wanted one of these things. I always wanted to be able to afford one, and now we get to play with them right here. And if we do the right thing,
might have both
you guys can drive home with them, which is a pretty big bonus. Exactly. And I'm actually a little jealous, but.
In the early 1980s, the Buick division of General Motors had a reputation for being deluxe and D-U-L-L dull.
A lot of chrome, squeaky wire hubcaps, white wall tires, and wood grain on the wagons.
Buick is the doctor's car, upper middle class, older people. You don't expect to see a Buick go fast at all.
But there were some at Buick who had a need for speed. After World War II, Buick's racing division began souping up their cars and competing with the likes of Ford and Chevy. In 1981, the division won the manufacturer's trophy on the Grand National circuit. To honor the occasion, Buick decided to build a limited edition high-performance model. Buick engineers and designers took the uninspired 1982 Regal coupes and gave them a makeover. The result, the Buick Grand National. This was not a sedan for lightweights who wanted to tool around the suburbs. Underneath the hood, this car really cooked. Buick put in a V6 engine, and a lucky few were turbocharged. They say if you build it, they will come, and they did. Collectors eagerly snapped up all 215 of the limited edition car. Buick realized they had the potential for something special on their hands. Production took a hiatus in 1983 as Buick engineers spent the year making the Grand National even better. When the 1984 Grand Nationals rolled off the assembly line, they all had a turbocharged V6 supported by a new sequential fuel injection system. Most 82s only had 125 horses under the hood. The turbocharged 84s had 200 and a 0 to 60 of 7.5 seconds. The new Grand National also got a bold new look.
I came up with a red Grand National prototype, but the people at Buick thought it was too much like Pontiac.
The original 1982 Grand National was black and silver, but by 1985, it was all Darth Vader black.
If you park a Grand National next to any of the Buick Regals that were produced before that, it just has a more sinister look than the cars that were the predecessors to that.
The all-black Grand National was a speeding ticket waiting to happen. It was a hot ride, even if it was a Buick.
People bought Buicks that would have never owned a Buick. They couldn't even didn't want to pronounce the word. I mean, I never owned a Buick either. And when I found out that they had the fuel-injected V6 with a turbo, I had to go drive one.
In 1985, Buick added the all-black grille. The car looked meaner than ever, and the buyers loved it.
The car was rocket ship fast. It was as mean as it looked, and that was a good thing.
Now, two teams will step back to 1985, courtesy of two Buick Grand Nationals, and find out what made them so grand, and if they can still flex their muscles. In the garage of Twins Turbo Motorsports, each team will develop a strategy to turn these street cars into pumped-up race cars.
Basically what we need.
First, both teams will shift these cars into the 21st century with new highly modified racing transmissions.
Have you guys ever replaced transmissions or anything like that?
I've never replaced a transmission. I've always sent my transmissions out to get replaced.
Nope. So I got my work cut out for me today with you guys, definitely.
Exactly.
Next, they'll replace the existing turbo with a high-performance turbo to force greater amounts of air into the engine.
Engines of all kinds are air pumps. That's all they come down to. It's an air pump.
Then, to further increase the horsepower, they'll install an intercooler, high-performance fuel injectors, an MSD ignition system, and a racing exhaust.
Are you guys ready to get to work?
We're ready. Let's go.
All right, let's do this.
Let's do it, bro. Come on.
Coming up next, the inspiration for the Grand National speed and power comes from a 19th century design.
Turbochargers have been around since the 1890s.
Snap one off.
And while one team starts their teardown,
Nice. That's hustle. I like seeing this hustle here.
the other has a meltdown.
What are you doing? What's happening? What's the story?
I'm busted. There's no way I can get myself out of this one.
Detune yourself for 5 minutes.
In the garage of Twins Turbo Motorsports, the teams suit up for battle on the garage floor. Lucas and Jeff have Eric as their crew chief. Mark is the crew chief for Sundance and Damon.
We'll get this shock to get out the way.
The teams have 2 days to tear down and then soup up two 1985 Buick Grand Nationals. Giving new life to the 1980s masterpiece of muscle car engineering is all part of the preparation for a winner-take-all drag race.
These guys obviously want to win. Obviously they want to win. Lucas is a freaking gorilla here. He's working on this thing.
both teams tackle the removal of the Grand National's exhaust system.
Out of here.
Get crap out of here.
A new larger diameter exhaust will increase the airflow through the turbocharged engines.
Luckily, we have new headers instead of these exhaust manifolds from the factory. Give us some more horsepower.
Lucas and Jeff have removed the pipes under their car and are now working on removing the exhaust manifold inside the engine compartment. A 3-chamber exhaust manifold connects to each side of this V6 engine, linking the engine and the turbocharger. The existing stock manifold is suitable for street use, but on the drag strip, the cars will need more efficient airflow. The increased airflow could potentially double the horsepower when combined with the other racing components the teams are installing.
So for what we're going to be doing racing is these guys are going to make a downpipe, which is basically a straight exhaust system off the back of the turbo, kick it out to the side of the car over there, and be done with it.
On the other side of the garage, Sundance and Damon are having less success removing their 20-year-old rusted exhaust system.
Screw looks like it's part of the exhaust.
Well, screws are used for wood. We use nuts and bolts.
All right, this bolt here looks like it's part of the exhaust.
I can't say to them, remove X, Y, and Z because they're not even sure where that might be. Unfortunately, they're the hands that make it happen.
Mark jumps in to help his team rip off the stock exhaust.
All this stuff, it's small diameter, all these really poor bends. It's real hard to make horsepower with this kind of junk on a car.
While Sundance and Damon are limping along, Jeff and Lucas are solid and focused, moving quickly through their teardown by pulling out the original turbocharger.
Turbo's gone!
This is the stock turbo. Turbochargers have been around since the 1890s. Some of the earliest vehicles that were ever built had early primitive turbo systems on them.
A Grand National speed and power comes from its turbocharged engine. 19th century auto pioneers like Daimler and Diesel tried pre-compressing combusted air back into the engine to increase power and lower fuel consumption. But it wasn't until after World War I that turbocharging really took off. In the 1930s and 40s, military planes like the legendary B-17 bomber had turbo engines. A turbocharger is an air pump forcing more oxygen into the cylinders. More air means greater combustion, more horsepower, and a bigger bang for the buck. And after the war, turbocharged cars began hitting the road in bigger numbers, especially in Europe.
In Europe, with their really small displacement cars, they put turbochargers on them. In America, we always relied on cubic inches for horsepower.
But it wasn't Europe that finally persuaded the U.S. to go turbo. It was OPEC's 1973 oil embargo that led to gas shortages and a 400% increase of gas prices over the next year.
Buick really had a lot of negative publicity because of the energy crisis. They depicted the large Buick as gas guzzlers. So this turbo project then was especially attractive because of the fuel economy and the performance.
Turbocharging can substantially increase engine power and make a V6 as powerful as the bigger, heavier V8. Because turbocharged engines use less fuel and emit less carbon dioxide, Buick decided to introduce turbocharged cars in the mid-70s. But turbocharging had its drawbacks. Sudden changes in temperature or fuel settings could lead to engine failure. Buick finally solved the problem with a new fuel injection system and offered it in the Grand National.
Without the fuel injection's ability to anticipate the turbo's needs, you never have a successful package. It allowed them to have better fuel control, so the drivability issues were much, much better. Today we look everywhere, we see boosted engines, and they work so well that the average person doesn't know that it's boosted.
That is until they step on the gas. In the Grand National, turbo boosting added up to 50 horsepower and improved the 0 to 60 time by 8 seconds. The hope back in the garage is that the extra boost is going to be the ticket to winning 2 Grand Nationals. Firefighters Damon and Sundance are getting ready to yank their old turbo and replace it with a little 21st century turbo bling.
The turbo that we're putting on is an ultra-modern design as far as the efficiency of its operation goes. We need to flow enough air to make 400 horsepower, so we needed a turbocharger that had more modern design aspects to it.
The larger turbo is a power adder, plain and simple. The new turbo is going to further enhance the performance of the Grand National by helping to process fuel more efficiently.
Move the housing portion of it. Okay. Because we're gonna have to recycle the housing.
You have to worry about this bending, or?
Well, we do have to worry about it bending. We don't want it to bend.
Try and take off this brass fitting without messing it up. And I put some WD-40 on it, but it was important to get off without ruining it. I didn't win. I think I broke it.
It is. It's gonna happen, you know? It's hot, turbo car, old.
We need that part for the new turbo also?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. I'm sure we can recover from that.
We'll see.
Yeah.
In his normal job, he uses the jaws of life, and with the turbo feed, he used the jaws of death. Sundance broke the turbo inlet, oil pressure feed inlet. It's completely destroyed, and that is going to screw us up tremendously to try and find a replacement for that part.
He's told me that the way he measures a man is by how many times he makes the same mistake. And I'm not going to make that mistake again, that's for sure.
Where's the spark plugs?
The model of efficiency and hard work, Lucas and Jeff are on to popping in new spark plugs. In 1839, African-American inventor Edmund Berger is believed to have crafted the first spark plug for an experimental internal combustion engine. More than a century later, Berger couldn't have imagined the frustration he's unleashed on this garage floor.
You got to get to them spark plugs as soon as they get on up here.
I like the fact that my guys are pushing me to get them parts that they need in a timely manner. Makes me excited about the prospects.
The prospects seem dim at best for Mark's team, who are finally getting around to changing out their spark plugs.
You still getting those things out?
I'm just trying to get one of these spark plugs out.
Removing spark plugs is delicate work in any engine. They can be fragile, and if broken, they may need to be machined out, costing hours of precious build time.
You need help with spark plugs on this side, Sonny?
And I just heard this sickening noise. I hear about people doing it all the time, where they break off the top of a spark plug, but I never thought I was gonna be stupid enough to do it.
What are we doing? What's happening? What's the story? Yeah, huh?
Mm-hmm. I'm busted. There's no way I can get myself out of this one, so.
I'll pull it out.
I'm trying.
Next, Buick engineers have one more trick up their sleeves to create the fastest and meanest Grand National ever. And the mechanical Wonder Boys finally hit the wall.
This turbo kit
It's not working out properly.
The crossover on this side?
The teardown is nearly complete, so both teams have started to install the high-performance parts that will make these muscle cars masters of the drag strip.
All right, so far my guys are rocking. They're now on to reinstalling the passenger side header, and definitely on schedule, maybe even a little bit ahead of schedule. For me, this is magical, because I don't have to do a whole lot of work.
There are two performance headers, one for each row of cylinders to be installed on the V6. These replace the exhaust manifolds removed earlier. Sundance and Damon are also ready to tackle their headers.
Yeah, this is our new exhaust headers, I believe.
We require a lot of these people, but they are not up to speed for what we're doing here. You know, I've spent a lifetime doing this, and I've made all the mistakes that they've made, and then some, except I did it when I was like 11 years old.
To prevent air leaks, each header is secured with an orange high-heat silicone sealant and a gasket ensuring a tight seal to the valve chamber.
The whole thing needs to be orange, or just
a little bit. Let me see what you got. No, just around the portholes.
Next up for Jeff and Lucas, fuel injectors. The fuel injector is an electronically controlled valve which sprays a fine fuel mist directly at the intake valves in the engine. The first fuel injector was patented by Stuart Hilborn in 1946. The first hot rod to pass 150 miles per hour used his injector.
The bigger injectors that we put in are going to be able to add adequate fuel for all of the boost we have going into all the extra air.
The fuel injector made appearances in the 50s, 60s, and 70s, but the carburetor was still king until the mid-1980s. Then car makers started using more reliable fuel injection systems for emissions control, fuel economy, and all-around efficiency. In 1987, Buick put out more than 20,000 Grand Nationals. The performance level was outrageous, and the car promised to be a wild ride.
In '87, the car was the fastest production car ever built. It actually outperformed a Corvette. The car will plant you in the seat from 0 to 60, and you cannot get out of that seat. I used to put people in the passenger seat, and I'd tell them, I'll put a $100 bill on the dash. And from 0 to 60, if you can lean up and take your $100 bill, it's yours. Nobody's ever done it yet.
The Grand National was always slated to be a limited edition, and the 1987 model year was to be its last. Buick Chief Engineer Dave Sharp asked Mike Doble and his team to create an exclusive version to mark its farewell.
We wanted to build a car that truly represented the achievements of the Grand National's past in performance, in passion, and its style. We wanted to build the ultimate Grand National.
The car, dubbed the Darth Vader, was about to get meaner. The project became known as the GNX, and this jet black monster made everything else pale in comparison. It had 300 horsepower with 360 foot-pounds of torque. The manufacturer claimed the top speed was 125 miles per hour. Everyone knew it could go so much faster.
Performance numbers for the GNX were quite significantly improved over the production Grand National. 0 to 60, the Grand National was 4.9 seconds. The best timing we were able to get, and we swore it was with a monkey behind the wheel, was 4.7 seconds in the GNX.
The car was hot, and not just because of its aggressive looks and scorching speed.
One of the more dramatic problems with turbocharging is the heat that's built up because it uses recirculating exhaust gases to spin the impeller. We needed to get that heat away from the engine, so we made these portholes actually functional. In fact, at high speeds, if you stuck your hand out over that, you'd very likely blister your skin.
Priced at nearly $30,000, the GNX was $10,000 more than a standard Grand National. Today, a GNX can cost over 50 grand. Production of the GNX was originally set at 200 units, but demand from the Grand National's hardcore following forced production to be raised to 547 units.
They were actually closing the plant that built the car. And the demand at that point becomes so intense that probably the only time in their production career that they ever had to actually extend the production of a car that they were discontinuing.
From '82 to '87, the Grand National ruled the road as America's ultimate '80s muscle car. It gave drivers with a lust for speed and power, a car that took them back to the pumped-up muscle car era of the '60s and early '70s. Half of the Grand Nationals may be history now, having succumbed to accidents and rust, but there are two in the garage, and someone's going to win them. Sundance and Damon have moved ahead, and with the help of Mark, they are tackling their intercooler installation.
This is the key item for turbochargers, because you cannot make power unless you have a proper intercooler.
On turbocharged vehicles, the air pulled in through the intake is compressed, increasing the temperature to a blistering 350 degrees. The intercooler, which first appeared in the 1950s, brings the temperature down to 140 degrees.
And this is basically a radiator for the air, and as the turbo will blow through here, this will all be under pressure, and it'll go through it, and then it heads on its way back into the engine. But as it does it, it gets cooled, and it lowers the charge temperature, which allows us to run much more boost, allows us to make a lot more horsepower. That thing's getting mounted right now?
Yes, sir.
I like.
Eric and Jeff install the intercooler. Now they run piping from the turbo to the intercooler and back to the engine. But the best laid plans don't always work.
We go to start laying out the intercooler pipes on it. They're custom made for the car. When we finally got it all mocked up and set up, it didn't look like it fit 100%. It hit me that the transmission's not in the car. And with the transmission not being in the car, the engine is tilted backwards, throwing off all the intercooler pipes by an inch here, an inch there, so that it put the transmission in and it'll probably fit in perfectly. This is what makes it exciting though, you know? Trying to figure out how the hell are you gonna do that? 3, 4, 5.
You know, we got the header system, the intercooler is on, we got the fuel injectors. We're fighting a lot of small battles right now, and we're winning them, so we're starting to see the fruits of our labor.
All right, fellas, end of day one. Day one. Brutal big day.
Isn't that good? A good initiation for us.
Exactly. Unlike the grease monkeys, we're not.
Well, the grease
Man,
monkeys
I remember your hat being really clean this morning. Look at that thing. Hey, I wouldn't charge.
This is a sign of work right here.
Yeah. We'll have some bragging rights tomorrow.
We're doing it on track.
Yeah.
Coming up, with 1 day left, The teams race the clock to get their cars ready for the shootout on the drag strip. And nearly 100 years ago, Buick's success on the track translated into big bucks in the showroom.
When you win on Sunday, you sell on Monday.
As we go into day 2, the biggest challenge is to get the transmission in. This is the original 85 transmission here that came in the car, and we had to take it out to be modified. Basically, we had it fully beefed up so it could withstand lots of horsepower, and it's gonna shift really hard at the RPM limit. It's gonna bang into gear. I can't wait to drive this thing. Hopefully one of your cats will let me drive it.
Both teams get stuck at a critical point. The most complicated part of getting the transmission in turns out to be inserting the torque converter.
The torque converter will turn all of our power into a slingshot so that we can really get off the line. We're spending a lot of time pulling it off and pushing it back in and pulling it off and pushing it back in just to get the teeth just to fit in just right. And you can't see inside of there, so you don't know. You just kind of have to feel it to see if it's right.
If you look in there, we got notches.
Notch there, right.
Assembling and installing the transmissions kicked the butts of both teams. It took each team more than an hour to get the transmissions fully mounted.
On this side.
We should grease up with camo.
Hey.
Scare the hell out of these guys. That's what I get for not paying attention. Am I bleeding?
Yeah, you are.
Corbin!
Oh man, big scar across. No, I'm fine. No, you do got a cut there.
For the paramedics Damon and Sundance, this is the perfect chance to force a delay of game.
It's about an 1/8 of an inch cut. On
1/8 inch laceration. Could meet trauma center criteria. Might have to get a helicopter in here.
You're gonna live.
Thank God
What we need you to do is, you need to slow down. Stop working so hard over there. Put your feet up. Do not touch any heavy equipment for at least 6 to 10 hours.
6 to 10,
If you feel lightheaded, stop work immediately and call 911.
Wow. Easy.
From paramedics to paramechanics, it's back to work on the Grand Nationals. They removed the old turbos yesterday. Now it's time to install the new high-performance turbos.
The idea of forcing air into an engine to make more horsepower has been around since the dawn of the internal combustion engine. The Indy cars were turbocharged at one time, and they spent millions of dollars on research to try to perfect turbo technology. All of that stuff takes years to trickle down to the street. We have a really efficient brand new turbocharger that'll flow a lot of air. The exhaust gas moves this wheel, which then moves a compressor wheel. So this is the exhaust side of the turbo, and all the exhaust gas from the entire engine goes through here, and as it goes through this snail housing, and then exits through here as it spins this wheel.
That wheel spins the turbine, which forces air into the engine, and the pressure it creates in pounds per square inch is called boost.
Factory car runs 12 pounds of boost in first gear and then drops off to 10 and 10 in second and third gear. With the upgraded turbo, we're gonna probably run a solid 15 across the board. That's gonna add tons of horsepower.
Bolting on the new turbo is not a problem, but making it function properly with an exhaust system may end up being the difference between victory and defeat.
It's gonna be really, really, really hard.
I'm gonna try to remake this piece of pipe. This whole complete piece.
All we wanna do is get that to the bottom of the car and then dump it out the side.
This is an important part of the turbo build, or our whole day will be failed. Can't move the turbo because the turbo's connected to this header pipe.
On day one, the old exhaust systems were torn off the Grand Nationals. Now both teams are fabricating exhaust downpipes that run from the turbo out to the bottom of the car. It sounds easy enough, but it's a real problem.
With the amount of room that we had to deal with, it was an awful challenge to get it done.
With only 4 hours left, each team sweats it out. The challenge now is to complete their build or be penalized. Jeff's downpipe has a long run from the turbo down to the opening in the belly of the beast. He welds together a pipe with a 2-inch diameter. Sundance and Damon, on the other hand, decide to take a different approach. They use a shorter downpipe with a larger diameter to allow a more direct route for escaping exhaust gases.
It's a challenge to figure out how to make this thing, you know, the compromise between making horsepower and making it fit. Right, we started out at 2 1/4 inches, we went to 2 1/2 inches, and we went to 3 inches. And this is our exhaust system, because back pressure is the enemy of horsepower when it comes to turbos. Remember those pinwheels that you held up as a kid? That's how a turbo works. It's like you put your hand behind that pinwheel and it stalls. So if you take your hand away, it's freedom to move. That's the same way the turbine housing, the turbine blade works in the back. So we want as little restriction behind the turbo as humanly possible.
Finally, after 3 hours of intense struggle, the fabrication pays off for Sundance and Damon.
Guys, it looks like we got about an hour left, all right? So we got to get our hustle on. We got about an hour left.
On the other side of the garage, the team is dividing their efforts. Jeff continues working on the downpipe as Lucas installs the MSD racing ignition.
I would suggest that you always double, triple check all of your ignition wires. You don't want to have any misfires or crossed wires.
The MSD ignition system is a powerful tool used in all types of auto racing because of its ability to create a rapid-fire multiple spark. Its payoff is complete combustion of the car's fuel mixture, which results in more power upon ignition.
Instead of firing one spark, it fires a bunch of them. So it helps it burn up all the fuel that's hanging out in there.
With all the high-performance parts these teams are adding to their cars, there's still a vital component that can't be overlooked: racing slicks.
Historically speaking, when drag racing first started, what people would do to try to get maximum traction is they would take street tires that are basically like this, and they would shave them down and take the tread off of them so that they would be more of a slick tire like this. And what we have here today is actually a really fine example of a street legal racing tire. As we constantly say in racing, the highest form of racing technology finds its way to the streets eventually. Tires are no exception to the rule. So these are going to look mean, but they're also going to do a really good job on these Grand Nationals.
Turning these 20-year-old Buicks into race cars will allow the teams to carry on a proud tradition that started more than a century earlier. Buick's racing heritage dates back to 1904. Early Buicks had overhead valve engines, a technological innovation which provided up to 80% more horsepower than the more common flathead engines. This power translated to speed, a whopping 40 miles per hour, but incredibly fast for the time. Soon Buick was winning races, bringing home more than 500 trophies between 1908 and 1910. Wins at the racetrack turned into dollars in the showroom, and in 1908, Buick sold more cars than Ford and Chrysler combined.
When you win on Sunday, you sell on Monday, and that's kind of a slogan that most of the car companies use, having their name in front of the public.
But a new group of executives decided to concentrate on luxury over performance. Buick was out of the racing game until after World War II, when the growing popularity of auto racing once more drew customers to performance vehicles.
At the time when the Grand National came out, Buick had a racing program. They were providing passenger car-based engines for the Indianapolis 500. They did fairly well, they never won, but the technology, the development of turbocharging, the experience of the engineers said, why don't we put this in a car?
Buick started becoming very, very popular at the drag strips. We had cars running in the 12-second ET bracket, and then it was 11-second, and then it was 10s, and then it was 9s, and as we learned more about how the turbocharger and the engine had to interact.
The turbocharged V6 engine, so successful on the track, pumped up Buick sales for all models. In 1983 and 1984, Buick broke sales records. More than 1 million Buicks were sold worldwide in 1984 alone. Once again, Buick's racing success pumped up the action on the showroom floor, just like in 1908. Back in the garage, the racing components are installed on the 1985 Grand Nationals. Both teams are ready to cross their fingers, turn the keys, and hope to light them up.
This thing should be starting now.
Yeah.
I don't have a light indicating that the MSD is on. Okay. Sundance was in charge of working on the electronic systems on the car. He said he could handle that thing. How did it look underneath there?
It was wired incorrect.
Yeah.
Really?
Yes.
Yeah. We went back to the diagram and did it the right way.
Okay.
I wish that I had done the ignition right the first time, you know? That really bothered me.
That's what I'm talking about.
It's been a long haul. But Sundance and Damon get their car started first.
That's right, baby. That's what I'm talking about.
Now, Lucas and Jeff are in trouble. They need to get their car started within the next 30 minutes, or they'll be penalized at the start of the first race. They'll be assessed a 1/10 of a second penalty for every 10 minutes they go over in the garage. It could kill their chances of winning 2 Grand Nationals.
Hey, I think I found our problem.
What?
Like a laser locking on a target, Jeff spots the problem. It's in the fuel pressure regulator.
You can't even push the needle in. Little valve stem is in there. It's just dripping. I found it had some dirt clogged into it. I took some spray, I cleaned it out. Starting to work. Keep going. Keep priming it. There we go.
I'm excited. You want to see if this thing's gonna live now or what? Nice.
Good job.
So, we got us a drag race.
Yeah.
It's tough being a turbo junkie. It really is. It's a lot of work.
I think we really did really well in the garage, getting everything done before they did.
Great team's going down. That's all there is to it.
Coming up next, a classic Grand National shootout at the track. The winners will take home 2 masterpieces of 1980s muscle.
Did I ever mention I love to be at the racetrack? Yeah, several times. Several times. Check this out. Look, here comes our crew right here. Our boys are here. What's up, gentlemen? What's up?
Wow, look at the car, man.
Yep.
Shiny.
Nice.
Shiny. Nice, yeah.
All right, which one of you guys is going to drive?
I'm driving first.
Who's going to be driving round 1?
I'm going to say for Jeff.
Yeah, I'll
He's gonna
drive.
go.
Jeff, you're going to drive round 1?
Yeah.
You ready for this?
I'm ready.
Are you ready to
Pumped.
do this?
I'm pumped.
Let me slap him around.
Drums going
Smack around a
around.
little bit and get them ready to go. I've been a big fan of the Grand Nationals since they first came out. I've been waiting to see something like this happen where we get to get our hands on a couple of them and do some things to them. All right, let's get you suited up. Let's get ready for round 1. Come on, let's do this. Let's do this.
The stakes are high. 2 killer muscle cars are on the line. One team will drive home in style with 2 of the 1980s biggest, baddest monsters.
Quick set of rules here. It's gonna be a 15-minute turnaround time between each round, so go over the cars and check it out. We got our good friend Jack Beckman here from Frank Harley Drag Race School. Gonna go over some drag racing basics. So Jack, take it away.
Guys, we got some Buick turbo cars here. These are gonna leave a little bit quicker than the average car. We're gonna go over the Christmas tree real quick. When you guys pull up towards the starting line, the amber lights are gonna count down in 5/10 increments.
When the guy went over how the tree works and everything else, that was the first time Damon and I had heard that.
I've never heard of it. I've never heard of a staging light and an amber light. I've never heard of that.
The idea is if you wait till you see green, you're gonna be late. Probably gonna be handing your keys over to the other car there. You wanna try to leave when that last amber just flashes on there. A good reaction time might spell the difference in a win here.
The cars are equal. We put the same high performance parts in the cars. So I figured, you know, the race is gonna be made or lost at the starting line. All right, baby, I'm ready. I'm gonna get my seat adjusted.
Let's do it, man.
See you when I get back.
You ready for this, guys? I'm beyond ready. I've been waiting for this turbocharged race for a long time.
Only option is to win. That's it.
Before the race, the tires are warmed up for better traction.
All right, get a nice burnout. Get these tires up to operating temperatures. Drag it forward a little bit. Stage it. Stay nice and calm. A cold tire, it's not sticky. It's hard rubber. Once we get a lot of heat into it, it really starts to get nice and sticky. Let's go.
I was nervous. I was really nervous. But by the time I sat in that seat and looked down the track, I got real calm.
To win only.
Yeah, okay, well, there you go.
We're good? This will tell everything right here.
Let's go, baby!
Our car's slow.
He's I just saw Damon getting smaller and smaller and smaller, and the other car was just not cutting it, just not cutting it.
Damon and the gray team took off pretty hard. Jeff took off pretty lazily, and the car didn't sound like it was hitting on all 6 cylinders. So he just tried to muscle it down the track, and it just never woke up.
Damon was smoking, beating Jeff by nearly 3 seconds with a high speed of about 95 miles per hour.
Yeah! That's what I'm talking about right there. Out of the corner of my eye, I saw their car in my rearview mirror. And that's when I started screaming. That's what I'm talking about, baby. Smoke them.
That's right, baby. That's right.
We thought maybe we had a little bit more horsepower on them, but I think it turned out to be our horse was very tired.
How to behave.
This bitching, dude.
Yeah. When we won that first race, I looked over at Lucas, and his head was down. And I thought, we got him now.
Oh, we lost, man.
Yeah. I'm worried about that car, unfortunately, because it sounded like it was banging and popping and misfiring and stuff, and I don't think they're going to be able to get it back.
Might as well just hand them the keys right now. Say, here, you got a blown up motor. I'm going home.
Come on, though.
I was on it. I was shifting.
Yeah.
I did my part good, yeah?
Yeah.
3-second difference. We gotta be running on 5 cylinders.
It definitely didn't sound like it was running on all 6. You got 15 minutes right now. Like, we really got to make something happen.
We got nothing happening right now. So.
Yeah. Let's pull number 1 out, see what it looks like.
After their poor performance, Lucas and Jeff believe that one of their cylinders is misfiring. The winner is determined by the best 2 out of 3 races, so these guys are still in the game. They have 15 minutes to get their car up and running, or they forfeit and lose their Grand National. They go first to the spark plugs and the fuel pump relay.
Clear?
Clear.
Their car is weak.
What do we do about this?
We verified that the fuel pump relay was bad, tried to jump it, and it wouldn't start anyway. I hate to be the bearer of bad news, but your 15 minutes is up.
Yeah, this is the worst way to lose right here.
It's the worst way to win.
Out of the pit.
I mean, we both wanted to settle it on the racetrack.
We didn't want to settle on the racetrack, man.
Put it this way, we didn't fail, the car did.
Jeff and Lucas have years of experience working on cars, but experience had nothing to do with this race. It all came down to a 20-year-old part that couldn't hold up under the strain of racing.
The cheap $2 part, as they say, is the one that takes you out of the mix, and ours might have cost $4, but it did a good job of taking us out of the mix. Who wants these?
Which one you get?
Oh, man.
You get the broken one?
I don't know. We're going to decide. Here's the deal. I'm holding on to these keys now. He has to beat my time. If he beats my time, he gets to pick which.
If I don't beat your time, I'm just going to keep going. I won't even stop.
It's racing, man. File that under happens as far as I'm concerned, you know?
But the competition isn't over. Sundance will take a solo run. If he can beat Damon's time, he will get his choice of cars. The 80s masterpiece of muscle he spent hours slaving over, or the Grand National that's not running. Sundance is fast out of the hole in a Grand National that has a new turbo whining, an awesome racing transmission, and an outrageous collection of new high-performance modifications. To beat Damon's time, it's all going to come down to the quality of the driver.
He didn't really hit it that hard.
Nice job.
Yeah.
So you get to choose your car then,
I get to choose my car, baby. Since I won the first race and I had a faster time than Sundance, I get to pick what car I want. So I worked on this car. I'm choosing this car as the car that I take home. And Sundance is going to take that car, do some modifications to it, get it back up in working order. And we'll probably meet on the track in about 3 months and race them again.
Race them again.
Race them again.
The teams both got to dive into a Grand National, got a chance to play with it for 2 days, and we put you under the pressure, and you got to come out to a racetrack and try to, put it all together. Except one piece of the puzzle was missing.
We have never worked on a car like this. Turbocharged, what?
What's that? This is real nice.
This is not where we thought we would be at the end of the race day.
Exactly.
And they're rolling chunks of history. That car will never come out again. There'll never be another one like it, and it's really cool to own a piece of history.